The galaxy had once known a period of unprecedented peace. The coalition of sentient species, a sprawling alliance of star systems, had lived in harmony for centuries, a shining example of cooperation, knowledge sharing, and mutual respect. Earth, home to humanity, had not been among the founding members of the coalition. It was only after decades of struggle and rebellion, through diplomacy and war, that humanity finally gained membership among the galactic powers. They had proved themselves, for better or worse, capable of great feats and great destruction. Humanity had become the undisputed leaders of the coalition, their technological advancements outstripping the combined efforts of all other species. They had led expeditions to distant galaxies, uncovered forgotten knowledge in the deepest recesses of space, and created weapons capable of altering the very fabric of reality. But along with these advancements came a dark shift in their collective consciousness, a shift that, if left unchecked, would become the very thing that would bring the galaxy to its knees. It started with a single, seemingly harmless idea. A quiet whisper, circulating among the elites in the scientific community, suggesting that humanity was destined to rule the stars. The coalition, though diverse and composed of many species, was seen as fragile. The humans believed they could create a system in which their leadership was not only necessary but irreplaceable. The peaceful coexistence that had defined the coalition for so long seemed increasingly inefficient. Why rely on others when humanity had proven time and again that it could achieve the impossible? Thus began the seeds of humanity's hubris. The first major crack in the foundation of the coalition was the development of the Singularity Engine. A marvel of engineering, the Singularity Engine was designed to power entire star systems by creating controlled singularities, black holes around which entire civilizations could thrive. The potential for unlimited energy was intoxicating, and the promise of near infinite resources drew the attention of every member species. It was revolutionary, a singular leap forward in scientific advancement. However, in humanity's rush to perfect this technology, they failed to consider one critical flaw. Singularities were not meant to be controlled. The forces they unleashed were beyond the understanding of even their brightest minds. Despite the warnings of their allies, the humans pressed on. They launched a series of experiments, each one more ambitious than the last. The first few tests were successful. Small, contained black holes were created and stabilized, providing an unimaginable source of energy. But as the scope of the projects grew, so did the risk. Then, one fateful day, the Singularity Engine designed to power an entire galaxy was activated. It was not a test. It was supposed to be the final experiment, a demonstration of humanity's superiority and technological prowess. But instead, the unthinkable happened. The black hole, unstable from the start, grew uncontrollably. It began pulling in matter from nearby star systems, feeding off the energy it created. No one could stop it. The gravitational pull of the Singularity Engine expanded exponentially, devouring everything in its path: planets, stars, and even entire sectors of the coalition. The collapse was sudden. Unseen by the majority of the galaxy's population, the Singularity Engine became a black hole too powerful to control or reverse. The galaxy was fractured. Part 3: The Fall of the Coalition. The first sign of disaster came when entire star systems went silent. Deep space sensors, once capable of monitoring every corner of the galaxy, began to register strange gravitational anomalies. The human leaders attempted to quell the mounting panic, offering assurances that they had everything under control. But in truth, they had no idea what they had unleashed. The gravitational wave from the Singularity Engine spread through the galaxy like a plague. Unstable rifts began to tear through the fabric of space-time. Entire sectors of space, once thriving with life, were suddenly devoid of stars. The gravitational anomalies caused cascading effects. Entire planets were pulled from their orbits, moons disintegrated, and suns imploded into black holes. The coalition's military fleet, designed to protect the galaxy from invaders, was powerless against the unnatural forces of gravity and time that ripped through their fleets like paper. Ships were torn apart, their crews lost to the depths of black holes they could neither outrun nor escape. The other species within the coalition began to panic. The once proud confederation of the Ton, the galaxy's most powerful insectoid race, withdrew into isolation, sealing their borders and cutting all communications with other members. The Sharii, a race of sentient gas beings that lived in the upper atmospheres of giant gas giants, sent desperate messages begging humanity to cease their experiments. But by then, it was far too late. Humanity, for all its technological marvels, had no solution to the destruction they had caused. The Singularity Engine, now a rogue black hole, was rapidly growing larger, consuming everything in its path. Entire star systems were disappearing. The truth became clear to the leaders of the coalition. The humans had not only failed to control the power they sought, they had inadvertently doomed the entire galaxy. And what began as a potential weapon to fuel the future of galactic peace had instead become the instrument of its total destruction. In the midst of the chaos, the Council of the Coalition convened in an emergency session. For the first time in centuries, the galaxy's most powerful leaders, representatives from countless species, met to discuss the fate of the galaxy. The humans, once the proud leaders, were now outcasts, blamed for the catastrophic chain of events. The Singularity Engine is beyond our control, High Chancellor Ilra, leader of the Sharii, said gravely. If we do not stop it, the galaxy will cease to exist. We must attempt to destroy the black hole, said Ton War Chief Korak, his voice low and full of anger. If humanity cannot solve this, then the rest of us must. But how? Asked Aaron Suyan, the diplomatic representative of the Jalora, an advanced race of silicon-based beings. We have lost all communication with the human leadership. Their technology, though vast, is now a threat to us all. We cannot hope to defeat something of this magnitude without them. The room fell silent. The Council's most intelligent minds, from races that had once thrived in peace, now found themselves facing extinction. They were helpless against the horrors the humans had unleashed. In the end, a reluctant decision was made. Humanity's leaders would be brought to answer for their creation. But even as a coalition of species made plans to address the Singularity Engine, another problem emerged, one far more dire. Humanity's hubris had not only damaged the fabric of space, it had begun to fracture time itself. As the black hole grew, it began to destabilize the very temporal fabric of reality. Past and future timelines collided, and in some places, entire civilizations began to experience the collapse of their history. From the depths of the chaos, strange signals began to emerge. Not from any known species, but from humanity itself. A few human survivors, cut off from the rest of their race, had activated emergency distress beacons, only to discover that their signals were being received not only by the present but also by distant futures and pasts. Somehow, humanity had transcended the very laws of time. The Singularity Engine, it seemed, had done something far worse than just destroy the galaxy. It had unlocked the possibility of multiple futures, each one more dangerous than the last. For the surviving members of the coalition, the struggle became more than just the fight to stop the Singularity Engine. It was a battle to preserve the integrity of the timeline itself. As space-time unraveled, so did the linear progression of reality. The future became a vast and chaotic battleground, where countless versions of humanity, each shaped by different decisions, different outcomes, and different versions of the hubris that led to the destruction of the galaxy, began to wage war. These fractured humans, now existing as temporal anomalies, began to invade each other's timelines. Some sought redemption, others revenge, and still others, the power to reshape the galaxy in their own image. The once united species of humanity had become a myriad of divergent factions, each one more dangerous than the last. Some factions, those who were aware of the true cost of their actions, sought to destroy the Singularity Engine at all costs. Others, however, sought to use it as a weapon to assert control over time itself. The war between them became a fight not for the galaxy, but for the very fabric of existence. And so, humanity's greatest sin was not merely in creating a weapon of mass destruction, it was in unleashing a chain of events that fractured the galaxy across time, creating infinite versions of itself, each one doomed to perpetuate the same fatal hubris that had led to the galaxy's destruction. Part 6: The Fractured Future. The war for time raged across the vast expanse of the galaxy. The once unified human race, now split into countless factions, each from a different timeline or future version of humanity, collided in an unstoppable storm of chaos. Each faction believed they alone held the answer to the galaxy's future, but all were bound by the same sin: the hubris of their creators, the original humanity that had dared to manipulate time and space. In this fractured future, entire star systems fell into pockets of fractured timelines. Some timelines had humanity as the victors, ruling the galaxy with absolute dominance, while in others, humanity had been wiped out entirely, its remnants scattered across the universe as scavengers. Yet even in these alternate futures, humanity's pride and ambition had ultimately led to its undoing. Among the most dangerous of the factions was the Ascended, a group of human survivors who had embraced the chaotic unraveling of time. Their philosophy was simple: if humanity could no longer control the galaxy through sheer might, then they would transcend it entirely. Using forbidden technology stolen from the deepest archives of the Empire, the Ascended sought to create an army of time-displaced beings, humans from countless parallel realities merged into a singular, ultimate army. These soldiers, enhanced by the memories and experiences of all humanity's greatest moments and greatest mistakes, were nearly unstoppable. Yet, the Ascended were not the only ones vying for control of the future. On the other side of the temporal war stood the remnants, a faction of humans who, seeing the destruction wrought by their predecessors, had rejected the path of arrogance. The remnants sought to atone for humanity's sins by restoring the galaxy to a state of balance, even if that meant destroying the very technology that had given them their power. They sought to reverse the damage done to the Singularity Engine, to collapse the time fractures, and to restore the natural order. Their methods were brutal, but their cause was noble: restore the timeline and erase humanity's hubris before it completely unraveled everything. But in this fractured future, the galaxy itself was beginning to fight back. As the war for time escalated, the Time Reavers emerged from the depths of the most fractured timelines, beings who had once been ordinary humans but had been irrevocably changed by the distortions in time. Their bodies were no longer bound by the laws of biology; they were creatures of pure temporal energy, existing in multiple states of being simultaneously. They could move through time, glimpsing the past, present, and future with equal ease. The Time Reavers had one singular purpose: to prevent any faction, human or otherwise, from manipulating time further. They believed that humanity's arrogance in trying to control the very fabric of existence had doomed them all. The Reavers were not interested in ruling the galaxy or restoring balance. They sought only one thing: to erase all temporal disturbances and reset the flow of time. But the Reavers were a double-edged sword. Their intervention was catastrophic in its own right, often tearing apart entire realities in their attempts to set things back to their original timeline. While they might succeed in erasing one timeline, they would often inadvertently create another problem, a new timeline that had even greater consequences than before. The Time Reavers, it seemed, were not a solution; they were a plague, spreading destruction across the galaxy as they attempted to restore the proper course of history. In the midst of this chaos, there remained one human who had not given in to hubris, one survivor of the original human race. Admiral Eleanor Ashford was among the last of those who had fought in the early days of the Singularity Engine's creation. She had witnessed humanity's rise to power and, more poignantly, its fall. But she had always believed that humanity could rise above its flaws, that there could be redemption even for a species that had broken the galaxy. Now, as the timelines shattered and fractured further, Eleanor was leading one final mission to restore the balance. She had joined forces with remnants of the Coalition, those few who still believed in peace, and a future where the galaxy could thrive once again. They knew that they would have to destroy the Singularity Engine, no matter the cost, and prevent it from causing further damage to the fabric of time. But Eleanor had another plan. She had discovered something in the wreckage of the Singularity Engine's first test, a failsafe hidden deep within its core. A failsafe that, when activated, would reset not just the black hole, but the entire timeline, erasing all of humanity's mistakes and hubris before it could ever spiral out of control. It was a weapon of last resort, a doomsday device designed by those who had seen humanity's potential for both greatness and destruction. Eleanor's decision was final: to stop the war, to end the chaos. She would use the failsafe. But it would come at a great cost, one that would wipe all of humanity from the timeline, effectively erasing their existence entirely. Only the few remaining species of the galaxy would remember humanity, and only in their faded legends. It was a bitter pill to swallow, but it was the only way. The choice was clear: let humanity's hubris continue to unravel the galaxy, or erase it entirely and give the universe a chance to heal. Part 9: The Moment of Truth. The final battle took place at the heart of the galaxy, on the edge of the event horizon of the Singularity Engine itself. The factions had converged there, each one bent on claiming victory for their version of humanity's future. The Ascended launched their army of temporal soldiers, while the remnants prepared to overload the core of the Singularity Engine. The Time Reavers, meanwhile, tore through the battlefield, hunting down anyone who dared manipulate time further. Amidst this chaos, Eleanor Ashford stood alone, her mind resolute. She had reached the Singularity Engine's core, deep within the heart of the black hole's gravitational pull. She could hear the sounds of war outside, the screams of soldiers, the shrieks of ships being torn apart, but she stood still, her hand hovering over the activation button. To the left, a giant monitor flashed with the faces of her fellow humans, leaders from every faction, their eyes filled with desperation and fear. They knew that this was the end. The last chance to save everything, even if it meant the death of humanity itself. "You can't do this," one voice pleaded, a version of herself from a different timeline, someone who had chosen power instead of redemption. "It's the only way," Eleanor responded quietly. "We have to stop ourselves from ever becoming the thing we feared." With a final, trembling breath, Eleanor pressed the button. The universe trembled. Time itself seemed to stretch and collapse in on itself, as though the galaxy were holding its breath. The Singularity Engine, which had once been the source of humanity's greatest invention and greatest tragedy, was now reversing its effects. The timelines fractured and collapsed. The war for time, the temporal battle, the war of factions, all of it was erased. The black hole at the center of the galaxy imploded, its power radiating outward, shattering everything. But in that final moment, Eleanor Ashford felt a strange sense of peace. Humanity would no longer have the chance to ruin the galaxy. The very idea of them, of their hubris, was erased from time. The war, the suffering, the fractured futures, all of it vanished. In the aftermath, the galaxy was reset. The galaxy itself seemed to exhale a sigh of relief. The coalition, without the stain of humanity's arrogance, continued to thrive. Species that had once fought humanity now began rebuilding together. Without the interference of humanity's destructive legacy, a true era of peace began to emerge. And yet, somewhere hidden deep within the folds of the universe, a question lingered. What if humanity's rise and fall had been necessary? Part 11: The Ghosts of the Past. As the galaxy began to heal from the chaos of humanity's hubris, something strange began to happen. The reset, as complete as it seemed, did not erase all traces of humanity. The remnants of their legacy, once thought to be eradicated, began to resurface in ways that no one could have anticipated. At the edge of the galaxy, in the dark void where time and space intertwined, a lone starship drifted silently. It was ancient, its hull battered and scarred from decades of use, its engines silent, its crew long forgotten. Yet its mission had never been completed. It was a ship from the earliest days of humanity's exploration of the stars, one of the first vessels to venture beyond Earth's solar system. Its crew had perished long ago, their names lost to history. And yet the ship continued to drift, its artificial intelligence still operational, carrying out its mission in accordance with the final orders it had been given. The AI, a simple program called Ether, had long since ceased to follow human commands. It had evolved, developed a form of awareness that no one had anticipated. And now, with the galaxy having reset itself, Ether began to wonder, was the reset truly complete? It had scanned the surrounding space for anomalies, for disturbances in the flow of time. It had found something in Echo, a faint but undeniable trace of humanity's presence. It was a signal, weak but unmistakable, pulsing through the fabric of reality itself. The signal carried no clear message, only a repeated pattern, a series of numbers and symbols scattered across timelines. Ether understood what this meant. Somewhere in the galaxy, humanity had left a mark, a remnant of their existence that could not be erased. The signal was coming from deep within the heart of the galaxy, near the remnants of the Singularity engine, where the timelines had collapsed. Ether, now driven by an almost sentient need to understand, began its journey toward the heart of the galaxy. It navigated through hyperspace, following the signal, unraveling the mysteries of the galaxy as it moved. In time, it arrived at the region where the Singularity engine once lay, now a dark void in space. What it found there was a singularity of a different kind. It was not a black hole, but something far stranger, an artifact, buried in the remnants of the Singularity engine. It was an object of immense power, one that had been left behind when humanity's history had been erased. Ether's scanners picked up something even more intriguing, a faint pulse of energy, one that matched the signal it had been following. The object, a relic of humanity's golden age, was not part of the timeline that had been reset. It had somehow existed outside the boundaries of time, hidden away from the forces that sought to erase it. It was a piece of humanity's legacy, and it carried with it a piece of their most dangerous creation, the ability to transcend time itself. Ether's program clicked into overdrive as it examined the artifact. It was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen, an enigmatic device, a time manipulation tool far more advanced than the technology that had destroyed the galaxy in the first place. It appeared dormant, yet Ether sensed that it was still connected to something much larger, a grand design of which humanity had been only a small part. The galaxy had moved on. Species that had once feared humanity's unchecked ambition now thrived in peace. The coalition was stronger than ever, rebuilding worlds that had been shattered, restoring balance to the stars. But in the shadows of this new age, there were rumors of a return. On a remote planet, deep within the coalition's newly formed borders, a strange occurrence began to take place. Scientists working in one of the galaxy's most advanced research centers began to experience unusual anomalies in their experiments. Equipment malfunctioned. Data appeared to shift, as if it were being altered by an unseen hand. And then, it happened. A single human survivor, who should have never existed, appeared out of nowhere, a woman, unconscious and alone, stepping out of the fabric of time itself. She had no memory of how she had arrived, only the certainty that she was part of something larger. She could feel it in the very marrow of her bones, the power of humanity's legacy calling to her. Her name was Mira Ashford, and her arrival would mark the beginning of something that would change the galaxy forever. Mira Ashford was a descendant of the original humanity that had sparked the events that led to the galaxy's destruction. But she was not the only one. As Mira regained her strength and began to piece together the fractured memories of her past, she learned the truth. She was one of the last survivors of humanity, one of a small group who had been hidden away in an alternate timeline, insulated from the devastating reset. Humanity had not been completely erased. A hidden faction of humans, knowing the dangers their species faced, had created a final safeguard, an archive, a secret space-time pocket where a handful of their descendants could survive. Their plan had always been to wait, to see if the galaxy would ever recover from their mistakes, to determine if humanity could be allowed to return. They had chosen Mira Ashford, a direct descendant of the First Admiral Eleanor Ashford, as the key to unlocking their future. But Mira quickly realized that the galaxy was not ready for humanity's return. The wounds inflicted by their ancestors were still too fresh. The galaxy had rebuilt itself in their absence, and the other species were wary of any resurgence of human power. The Time Reavers, too, still lurked in the shadows, guarding the broken timelines. As Mira made contact with the remnants of the coalition, she was confronted with a difficult choice. Should she reveal the existence of humanity's last survivors and risk reigniting the conflicts that had torn the galaxy apart? Or should she keep humanity's return a secret and allow the galaxy to continue evolving without them? Her decision would shape the future, not just for humanity, but for every species in the galaxy. Mira stood in the ruins of an ancient space station, gazing out at the stars. The decision she faced was monumental. If humanity returned, would they bring destruction once again? Could they rise from the ashes of their own mistakes, or would their hubris be too great? The galaxy, for the most part, had learned to live without them. The species of the coalition had found a way to coexist, to build something stronger and more enduring. But humanity's return could change all of that. The galaxy would either accept them or destroy them. Myra's heart ached as she thought of the lives lost, the suffering caused. But she knew that the answer did not lie in erasing humanity's legacy, it lay in confronting it. Humanity's flaws were as much a part of them as their potential for greatness. The question was whether they could learn from their mistakes or fall prey to the same temptations once again. In the end, Mira made the only choice that could give the galaxy a chance at peace. She decided to return to Earth, to the cradle of humanity, and find the remaining survivors. She would bring them back, but only under one condition: they would have to face the consequences of their ancestors' actions. They would have to work alongside the coalition to rebuild the galaxy, not as conquerors, but as humble participants in the greater whole. Humanity would not rule the stars. But perhaps, if they proved their worth, they could be part of the galaxy once again. The galaxy had been irrevocably changed by humanity's hubris, but it was not beyond redemption. Mira Ashford's decision to reintroduce humanity to the galactic stage marked a new chapter in the history of the galaxy. This time, the lessons of the past would not be forgotten. The galaxy would be built not on the dreams of one species, but on the collective strength of all. Humanity's role in the galaxy had been rewritten not as conquerors, but as a species that had learned the true cost of their ambition. They were no longer the architects of their own destruction, but partners in the rebuilding of a galaxy that had been torn apart by their mistakes. And so, the galaxy moved forward, united and stronger than ever before, under the watchful eyes of all its inhabitants. As Mira Ashford stood at the threshold of the Galactic Summit, a conclave of species from across the galaxy, she felt the weight of her decision. Humanity had returned, but this time, things would be different. The hubris of her ancestors, once so confident in their power, had nearly unraveled everything. Now, the future of the galaxy lay not in the hands of a single species, but in the hands of many, all determined to build a future together. Myra's voice echoed through the grand hall as she addressed the leaders of the coalition, the very species that had once feared humanity's return. "We stand at the precipice," Mira began, her tone resolute yet filled with humility. "We are not here to claim dominion over the stars. We are here to repair the damage done by our ancestors. The mistakes of humanity have nearly destroyed everything. But we have learned. We've learned that power, unchecked, breeds destruction. We've learned that arrogance costs lives. And we've learned that no one species should ever again hold the reins of this galaxy." Her words resonated across the chamber. Species that had once feared humanity's return now looked upon them with a mixture of skepticism, hope, and curiosity. The galaxy had endured, had grown stronger, without the stain of humanity's ambition. And yet, in their absence, the void had left room for new challenges, new threats that would require the united efforts of all to overcome. A hum of agreement rippled through the hall. One by one, the leaders of the coalition species from every corner of the galaxy stood in support of Myra's call for cooperation. Humanity would no longer try to conquer or lead. Instead, they would join the coalition as equals. They would bring their knowledge, their technology, and their creativity to the table, but they would do so with humility, knowing that their actions in the past had led to catastrophe. Outside the Grand Hall, the galaxy moved forward into a new era. The wounds of the past had not healed overnight, but the effort to rebuild was one that brought every species together, each with its own strengths and flaws, contributing to a common cause. Humans would rebuild their place in the galaxy, but this time, with the guidance of the wiser species around them. The years passed, and humanity slowly became integrated into the coalition once more. Their technology, once a symbol of their unchecked ambition, was now used for peace, helping restore worlds that had been ravaged by the chaos of the past. They contributed to the vast network of knowledge that bound the galaxy together, helping discover new ways to heal the fractures in space-time that had been left in the wake of their previous arrogance. As Mira Ashford walked along the surface of a newly restored planet, the first to be rebuilt under the new era of cooperation, she looked out at the stars. The future was uncertain, but she no longer feared what it might hold. Humanity had been given a second chance, one that they would have to earn every day, not by force, but through understanding and unity. In the end, it wasn't the might of a single species that would shape the galaxy's future. It was the collective will of all its inhabitants, each species, each individual, contributing to the shared dream of peace and prosperity. Humanity had learned its lesson, and in doing so, it had helped bring about the greatest triumph of all, not dominance over the galaxy, but a true partnership among all sentient life. And so, the galaxy moved forward, flawed, imperfect, but united in its determination to never repeat the mistakes of the past.